Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I am so glad that I am joined today by Lisa Roche, founder of Negare Life and host of the Find Your Flow podcast. For nearly 15 years, Lisa has been guiding individuals toward deep healing through a powerful blend of holistic modalities as a Feng Shui expert, Reiki Master Teacher, medical intuitive, and channeler for Transformative Meditations. She excels at harmonizing energy. Who doesn't love that? Lisa is proud to be the founder of Negare Life, where she helps clients create healing sanctuaries in their homes with the art of Feng Shui. She hosts the podcast Find Your Flow, which features Reiki infused channeled meditations to inspire growth, life stories to encourage listeners on their own healing journeys, and conversations with guests to explore spiritual and self-care practices. Lisa, I'm so happy to have you today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is an honor, truly. Thank you.
The honor is all mine. You have such an interesting story of
Mm.
growth and healing that led you to where you are today, where you're now using your own experiences to help others. And I love that. I believe that's why we go through things in life, to benefit
Amen,
others.
sister. Yes, I couldn't agree more with you. I truly believe that our experiences help normalize different life experiences, and that's the best way to connect, right? Heart to heart, experience to experience. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I have really enjoyed listening to your podcast. And in the first
Oh, thank you.
episode, you're very welcome. Thank you. In the first episode, you mentioned how you got started on your journey. And
Hmm.
one thing I love is that when your last child who was at home started school, you said, maybe I should go back to work. I need to do something. But what your husband
Hmm.
said was incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
So, yes, I think as a mom, right? So when our daughter was a year and a half, it I left work mainly, and I think that all mothers can sort of relate to this somehow. I left my career because I felt like a failure. I remember saying to a colleague, my manager, I said, I feel like a failure at home and a failure at work. And I feel like I cannot function in a constant state of failing. So I need to choose. And it was a tough decision, but I did choose to be a stay-at-home mom. And I spent, gosh, I mean, 8 years, 10 years, something like that as a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
And when when our youngest was ready to go to school full time, my first instinct was to go back to work. Like, how can I and I remember thinking, how can I contribute to the family? How can I sort of, I don't know, pull my own weight kind of, in the family, within the family?
Yes, I
So I
get
said
that.
that to my husband, right? There's there's this chunk of time when our young ones go off to school full time, full day, whatever that is, 6, 7 hours, something like that.
Hmm.
And I said, I could go back to work. Like, how can I function as an adult in this world? I could go back to work. And it was my husband who said to me, you could. Yeah, of course you can. But maybe you want to take this time where you don't have to be a mom to figure out who you are in this phase of your life.
That is such a gift.
I
Such a
still get
gift.
chills. I
Yes.
still, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was sort of like dumbfounded by it, because not that he would suggest that, but more of, uh, I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I want to do. And that's a lot of hours. And oh my God. And, all of these different worries and concerns. But
Hmm.
and when I really leaned into it and started to dream a little bit, I thought, I really want to lose the extra baby weight. So why don't I try Pilates? I go to this Pilates studio that has a dance studio on the ground floor and a Pilates studio upstairs. So you have to walk through the dance studio to get to Pilates. And I had always in my head and heart had been like a prima ballerina on the dance floor, not so much.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Not so graceful. But I thought maybe as an adult, I'd have a little bit more grace. And maybe if I took an adult ballet class, I would be given grace, So when you
Yes.
do something like that and you reach outside your comfort zone as an adult, you're typically surrounded by other adults who go outside their comfort zone and they just welcome you in.
That is so
And that's
true.
how I started that adult ballet class.
That's
Changed my life.
that's awesome. That is awesome. That is so great. So
Yeah.
so then from there, you started having some back pain, or you had off and on back pain
Yes.
that affected your ability to do what you really wanted to do.
Yes. Yes. Which again, we go wow, we go through things when and these experiences that are really challenging at the time. But when you look back on them, you go, oh, that was just a pivotal moment where I got to choose a path, right?
Yes.
So I had had back pain for years and years and years. It's actually one of my earliest experiences with Reiki was because of back pain. But there I was in the dance class, and my back went out on me, and I was
Mm.
just like debilitated. And when I say debilitated, I mean can't stand upright, can't get my legs to function. It was just I was a sack of potatoes and collapsed. And my Pilates instructor, the owner of the studio, she said, listen, I have this apparatus in the back room. I only see a few clients. Not everybody really likes it, but it's it's excellent for back pain. And I said, okay, I'll be right there. And I drove over and she takes me to it. And I looked at it and was intimidated because if anybody looks up the gyrotonic method and you see the tower, you go, oh, that's that's intimidating. It looks a little like a smidge torturous and a
Oh
little
no.
bit like medieval. But I said, I'll do anything. I'll try anything to get out of this pain. I'll try anything. And 30 minutes worth of traction and a little bit of movement. And I was upright, walking. It was amazing. And from that day on, I said, okay, I'm going to lean into gyrotonic and away from Pilates because something in my brain told me I didn't need to elongate muscles. I needed to spiral them and get them out of a place of tension. So that's what I did. And I wound up being like a total advocate for the gyrotonic method until that same instructor said, what do you think about getting certified? How about you become a teacher?
Oh
And it
wow.
took a couple of years of poking and prodding. She planted the seed. But once again, I said to my husband, what do you think? I don't know. I mean, I'm a mom, I'm a mother. Who am I to go up to New York City and spend 2 weeks and train and be like, I don't know, Mary Tyler Moore and single lady, right? Like
Right.
Sex in the
Gosh,
City. Like,
yes.
I'm not that girl, right? But he said, listen, I've got this. If you want to go, go. And his brother moved in, helped care for the kids for 2 weeks. And I always say, it like, talk about humbling and choosing a life path because those 2 weeks in New York, I got a picture of our son with a shaved head. And I specifically said, please don't shave his head. But he got his head shaved. And I was like, there's literally nothing I can do about it,
Right.
right? I'm in New York.
I get
And
that.
I was like,
Yes.
okay, all right, I cannot be a mother. Like I am choosing to be Lisa. I am choosing me in this moment to focus on me and what I'm doing and creating and becoming.
That's amazing.
So, yeah,
It's hard to let that not go, that's not the right word, but relinquish control over what you're used to having control over as you step into
yes,
something else. It is so,
yes.
so hard. But I'm glad you were able to
Well, not
do
only
that.
is it it's so fearful too,
Hmm.
right? You've identified as someone for so long and like inching away from it, but then to have it, boom, in your face, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to have to figure out like how to parent from a distance and how to be a champion for them at a distance, that kind of thing. It's
Yes,
navigating it is really hard. It's a transition.
it absolutely is. So you spent those 2 weeks, and what came of that?
Oh, I
Big
mean,
question.
so what came of it? Well, during those 2 weeks that I was doing the foundation training, um, and it was not easy. It was 9 hours a day, and you're going nonstop.
Mhm.
And I mean, I had a panic attack. Turns out, though, if you have a panic attack on the streets of New York, nobody blinks. It's
You
like
blend
no one
right in.
even I mean, you literally blend right in. You're just like, oh, hey. No, it's perfectly fine. But I did. I had a panic attack because I had to teach a group and I didn't know how to do that. I couldn't find my voice. I couldn't speak. All I could do was cry.
Oh,
But
wow.
after those 2 weeks, I came home and there was that little bit of, well, I did it. At least I
Hmm.
did it. Right. And now how do I earn those hours? Because you have to do teaching hours. And I was like, I don't know how to do, I don't know how I'm going to do this. How am I going to do this? And I said to my husband, I told him everything that had happened, crying on the streets of New York, going, I can't, I can't, I can't. And having the master trainer say, this is not a big deal. Come on in. We'll work around it. And he said to me, you know, our daughter's acting school is just starting a class for adults. What if you took that? He said, what if you took that class and you learn to come out of your shell a little bit, you learn to be less shy, and at the very least, you learn how to speak. He said, because you don't breathe and speak at the same time. And I
Mm.
was like, huh, okay, I never thought about that, but I'll do it if you can go with me. And he said, of course I'll go with you. So we show up at that first acting class where literally all you have to do is stand in front of the group and say your name and what brings you there.
Hmm.
And I stood up and I said, my name is,
Oh,
and
no.
I just started crying,
Oh, no.
crying, can't get my name out. And in that moment, everyone in the class rose to their feet, ran to me, and formed a circle around me and just hugged me and held me. And once again, in a moment of vulnerability, I was held and I was supported and I was loved. And I spent 2 years, 2.5 years in that acting class. And that taught me how to present, how to teach, how to have confidence. And from it, during that amount of time, I opened up my own studio. I had a private studio. I had private clients. And it was just this beautiful time in my life of figuring out who I was and finding my voice. I think that those years were dedicated to finding my voice. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then I think
Literally
I know,
finding your voice.
uh, literally, yes, yes.
And what were you going to say? You think you know?
I was going to say, I think I know your next question, which that brings us to the Atlas injury. And I know
Mm.
that you're curious about that.
Yes.
So there I was, thriving business, like steady clients and feeling my best. I was my healthiest. I was also coaching swim, so I was very active.
Hmm.
And at breakfast with friends, one to my left, one to my right, talking, head turning back and forth, when all of a sudden I felt a squeeze at the back of my head and I blacked out.
Oh, my goodness.
And yeah, right, collapsed on the table. And when I came to, I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk. I remember muffled sounds.
Hmm.
And I remember my friends like hoisting me up and dragging me out of the restaurant. And in that moment, I was trying to steady myself somehow. So I was feeling the wall as they were dragging me out. I remember feeling the wall and saying to myself, this is bumpy. This is bumpy. This is the texture of bumpy. So even though I couldn't see and I couldn't hear and I didn't really know what was going on with me, my other senses really started to kick in, and my brain was trying to make these neural connections of try and figure out your world around you. And I was like, this is wallpaper. That was a scene. This is the outside. I can feel the sun. And so all of these different neural input was trying to make its way through my brain. Super interesting to me
Wow.
because for 9 months, I stayed in a gradual debilitating state. So my functions just got worse. I got to the point where I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't like hold a cup to drink or anything like that. Um, I lost all capacity to walk, sit upright, hold my head up. And so I was just this lump, just
That's,
this lump.
I can't
And I remember
imagine.
thinking it was the lowest, I mean, the lowest point of my life was during that period of time.
Mm.
But I remember thinking, okay, I can't parent. I can't be a wife. So what period of time was that very similar to? When I was in New York and I had to surrender. This was just another form of surrender. Okay, what am I surrendering to?
Mm. Mm.
And I went to every specialist, every doctor. And in all of this, like the final turning point was a doctor who said he wanted to drill a hole in my skull. And I said, no, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, that's lunacy, no, thank you. And my sister said, listen, you've been everywhere. And she's a nurse. And she said, you've been everywhere. How about a chiropractor? I know this woman whose cousin goes to this chiropractor, had similar symptoms. And I was like, I'll try anything.
Mhm.
So I went to this chiropractor who wound up adjusting my atlas. So the atlas is the very first vertebrae. It's tucked up under the skull, under that occipital ridge. So you can't find it in normal X-rays, MRIs. None of those scans are going to find it. You have to shoot an X-ray through the mouth in order to find it.
Oh, wow.
And I had not had that done. They shot directly down my skull, directly through the back, through my face, and couldn't see anything because you have to go through the jaw. Otherwise, you just see the jaw, right?
Well, that's crazy. So that's why they
So,
hadn't seen exactly what your problem was.
yeah, right, right. But meanwhile, I'm passing out and completely non-functioning. But this chiropractor, she made an adjustment, and I was I was doing pretty well. I would say that I was like 70%.
Oh, wow. That's good.
And then I was doing PT, and the only problem was like all the way the human body functions is once you train muscles, they want to follow that path, that pattern.
Muscle
Right? So the
memory.
way you
Mhm.
raise your arm, you're going to raise your arm like that all the time unless you can think your way through a different pattern. So every time I was adjusted, the muscles just kept snapping back, and that bone would go to the right and then twist forward. And when every time it did that, it would decompress my brainstem, my vagus nerve, and the
Oh,
carotid artery.
oh my goodness.
So, right? So like that's literally everything,
That,
right? So my
yes.
short-term memory was gone, blood flow gone, neural impulses gone. And then in my that is the I can't say it was the weakest moment. My most broken moment, I'll call it that, my most broken moment.
Mhm.
I was seeing that chiropractor like 3 times a week, but in between each visit, I would go back into that um, shuttered state. And uh, so one day I had collapsed onto our floor, onto the family room floor. And I begged, I begged. I'm I'm not a religious person, but I'm
Mhm,
extremely faithful. I'm extremely spiritual. So I begged God
mhm.
to take me the burden. And those were the words that I used. I said, please take me the burden.
Oh
I
my.
am a burden to my family. I am a burden to my husband. I am a burden to, to my mother, to my sisters. I'm no longer of value. I am just a burden. Please take the burden that is me away.
Oh,
And I thought I was begging to die. That's what I thought. But
no.
if when I contemplate those words, please take the burden that is me, that is not somebody who wants to no longer live, right? They just don't want to be a burden anymore.
Yes.
And in that moment of deep, broken surrender, complete surrender, that's when I heard what I call the voice of God speak through
Hmm.
me.
I agree. Yeah.
And it was a voice I had heard before because I had had near death experiences prior. It was familiar, it was warm, it had a scent, it smelled like jasmine, it sounded like music. It felt it felt like your most warm, sweet music moving through you. That's the best way that I can explain it. And it filled me. And it just kept repeating, you have all the answers you need.
Mm.
You have all the answers you need. And I then, and I don't know how long I was out, but I was out. When I came to, I was like, okay, I have all the answers I need. That's my huge takeaway. That's
Hmm.
great. What are those answers?
Right.
Right? Start giving me answers. Like I just need answers. I just need some guidance. And it was find a sound healing. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a sound healing is. But there I was, collapsed on the floor, and my iPad was somehow next to me. And I don't know how it got there. It was just next to me. So I typed in sound healing. And the very first thing to come up was a chant called Ramadasa. And it turns out that that sequence of sounds, the frequency of those sounds are, it's a binaural beat, which means it speaks to the nervous system and it
Hmm.
triggers the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain, to the left, to the right. And I went, wow, that's a sound healing. And I immediately felt lighter, um, and more hopeful, more vibrant. So I said, okay, now I've discovered sound healing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now what, right? Now what?
Yeah.
And that same voice said, go to Facebook. And I went, okay, what?
Yeah.
Why? I'm not a huge social media. Like, why? What? So it's funny, like in your lowest moments, like you'll bargain. Oh my God, you'll bargain as
Yes.
if your life depends on it because it
Because
does.
it does.
And then
Yes.
at that first, right, that first challenge that challenges your senses, that first request that challenges your brain,
Hmm.
you go, wait, what? And then
Yes.
I went, oh, I take it back. I take it back. I promised that I would do anything that you guided me to do. And here I am, I'm talking out loud to I don't know who
Yes.
at that point.
Yeah.
So I go to Facebook, and I'm pretty sure everybody, all of your listeners know how Facebook works, right?
Yes.
So if there's a private group, you're not going to see a post from them if you're not a member.
Hmm.
And yet, the very first post on my Facebook feed was from a woman in a group, the group I was not a member of, but it was right there. And that post said, it's the Easter season. I'm looking for someone to help. Message me if you need help. It was that simple,
Oh my goodness. And tied to the Easter season. That's
right?
crazy.
You cannot make this up. You just cannot make this up.
Mm-mm.
So I started to shake and I started to cry. And I said, "You want me to ask for help?"
Oh, I feel that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Me, you're telling me I have to ask for help.
Mm.
The woman who has literally been hiding for 9 months, has hair that the gray has grown in, and I can't bathe independently, so I'm greasy. I pass out every time I lift my right arm, so you've got one hairy armpit and one shaved armpit, and I'm just sort of gross and not feeling like myself. Having spoken to someone outside of my home in 9 months, you want me to ask for help? That was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was ask for help.
I
So
believe that.
once again, surrender into discovering who I was, take these classes, surrender on the streets of New York into letting someone else parent, surrender in this um, debilitated state to allow someone to care for me and to parent for me and then surrender into asking for help. So I did.
Wow.
And I said, "Listen, this is what's happened. I'm in PT. I need help walking. Can you come help me walk?" And she said, "Absolutely." So she shows up on a Monday, and kindest woman. I'd never met her before. Kindest woman. She shows up at my house. She helps me put my coat on, and she takes me from our house to the neighbor's house, which is like maybe 100 steps, maybe. And it takes close to a half an hour because I'm so
Wow.
slow. And she's so patient and she's so kind. And she starts asking me what happened. And I'm like, it's the atlas, it's a bone. No one's ever heard of it. And she says, "Oh, I've heard of that. I've heard of that. I had an atlas injury. Is that what you have?" And I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I have." And she said, "Okay, great. Mine wasn't as bad. My symptoms weren't as bad as yours, but I know exactly who you should see. And he's only 2 towns away, but he has about a 2-month wait list." And I said, "That's all right. I'll get on a wait list." So she says, "Okay, listen, I'll come into your house. I'll write down everything because if I just tell you, you won't remember it." And I
Mm.
said, "You're right. I won't remember it." So she comes back into the house. She writes it on a yellow Post-it note, sticks it on the desk, says goodbye. And my brother in law, God bless him, he was living with us again. He's making dinner. And I said, "I don't know. I don't know if I should call. I am afraid to have hope."
Mm.
And I hear everything in the kitchen stop because he was cooking dinner for the kids. And he walked up to me and he said, "Lisa, when an angel shows up at your door, walks with you, cares for you, and then tells you what to do, who are you to say no?"
Wow.
And I said, "Okay, okay. You're right. You're absolutely right. As scared as I am, I'll call." So I call the doctor's office. It was 7 o'clock on a Monday night. No one should have been there. And yet, the office manager answered the phone.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, "I'm so sorry. I was expecting to leave a message." And she said, "No, I was on my way out. I had just hung up the phone with someone and I was on my way out, but it rang and something told me to answer." And I
Mm.
said, "I so appreciate that you did. I don't know if I would have had the courage to call again." And she said, "Well, tell me what you need." And I said, "Well, I would like to come in and see the doctor." And she said, "Oh, as luck would have it, the call that I had hung up with canceled their appointment for Wednesday. Can you be here on Wednesday?"
Oh my goodness.
And I said, "Yes, yes, of course, yes." I hang up the phone and I was like, "Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you."
Yes.
Wednesday, that Wednesday, we go to the doctor's office. He takes all different x-rays and pictures and photo, like all of these different measurements. and shows me everything and says, this right here, this is how far you're out of alignment. I'm going to use a sound wave to put your bone back in place.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, I'm sorry, what? And he said, it's a big machine, and but all we're doing is placing a rod right on the temporal bone behind your ear to allow the sound wave to travel. I'll set the coordinates, and it travels and slides the bone back into place so that your muscles don't freak out. They'll
Oh my
melt instead.
goodness. That is
Miracle upon
amazing.
miracle upon miracle upon miracle. That is why I do what I do today.
That's
Because I
amazing.
know, yes, I know miracles happen. I know that they work
Yes.
through us. I know that we are the conduits of love and
Yes.
healing and sacred exchanges. I just know it.
Yes. I love how in your story you cried out to God. He showed up. And not only did he show up, but he left breadcrumbs to prepare you
Yes,
for each step so that the
yes,
unfamiliar became familiar along the way and
yes.
you could accept that. Oh, that gives me chills. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. So, so that brings you to where you are today, helping other
yes,
people
yes.
who need to find healing for themselves.
And
That's
that
beautiful.
too is miraculous. It's nothing short of miraculous because about 3 months after I had seen that specialist, the Atlas specialist, I had another woman show up at my door who was there for like a pair of shoes. I had never met her before, but she needed shoes. And I said, I have some that you could borrow. I said, here.
Mhm.
And she looked in, and I had the gyrotonic tower in our living room. It was holding space. I was using it for my own PT because that was another thing. Lisa, you have all the answers you need. Everything is inside of you. You have it. One day in my recovery over that 3 months, I woke up and went, I have all the answers I need. I have all the answers I need. I can absolutely do a recovery better with gyrotonic than I can at PT. So I created a protocol for myself, and I started working that protocol, and I would pause and say, okay, is there anything else that I need to give, just drop it on in my brain. It's fine. Go ahead and tell me. And I
Uh-huh.
would start making notes and changes. So within 3 months, I was back to 100% in just 3 months. It was incredible.
That is
So this woman
incredible.
shows up. Listen, at nothing short of a miracle at every single step along the way.
Hmm.
And this woman sees the tower and she says, "What is that?" And I said, "It's the gyrotonic tower. It's a movement modality, and I'm certified to teach, but I've taken a little break." And she said, "Oh, this looks really interesting. Could it help my hip?" Yes, it absolutely can. Great. Could I be here on Thursday? And I said, "Well, I don't work with clients right now." And she said, "That's okay. Can I be here on Thursday, and may I pay you $50 for a half an hour of your time?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yes." Because all I'm hearing in my head is say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes, right? This
Uh-huh.
is another angel who just showed up at your doorstep, Lisa. Like, just say yes, say yes. There's something to be learned in every
Yeah.
moment. So I said yes. And that Thursday was Negare came back. It came back to my life in such a beautiful, beautiful way. And from that point on, I can't even tell you how I found clients because I think I advertised once and that was it. And yet I was constantly busy. And 75%, I'd say roughly, of all of my clients when I opened my studio back up were Atlas clients. They had the exact
Wow.
same symptoms. They were looking for relief. They didn't know what to do. And I said, I have a protocol. We're going to send you to the specialist. You're going to get your Atlas put back in alignment, and then you'll come here. We'll do some exercises and send you on your way. And that's just how it kept on going.
That
It
is
was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
I'm almost at a loss for words, which is really bad when you have a podcast. The way that God used what
Yes.
was your lowest moment in the very specific issue that you had that has such a profound effect on people. And then you're able to find some answers and help people tackle that exact thing. And people that just show up to you, it's
Yeah.
just, it's just so orchestrated in the
Right.
realm that we
And I
cannot see.
and we don't do anything. So, like, through all of this, I mean, it's how I was introduced to Reiki and how I was introduced. I mean, I brought sound healing to people, and I started to see the correlation. If you played certain notes or certain hertz, megahertz,
Mm-hmm.
how a human body would react differently. All of a sudden, a different movement would be able they would be able to access something more.
Mm.
Aromatherapy, same thing. So I became slightly obsessed with, well, how many of the senses can we use all at once? Because it seems to me that the human body has five senses and it would like to use all of it
Yes,
to be able to heal,
that's reasonable.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, it just, made sense to me. So then I started incorporating all of these different modalities. And it started with aromatherapy, sound therapy, and the gyrotonic method. And so for me, during my healing, I could see where nerve endings were firing off in my own body, because you would see literally red lines light up, and then all of a sudden, like, my ear would get really, really hot and be burning hot, and then those red lines would pull back and I would have my hearing,
Oh,
and it would
wow.
shoot back over, and you would trace them and watch them go light up my left ear, right, and it would get
Yeah.
really, really hot, and then it would recede and I could hear perfectly fine. Same thing, like with everything, all of a sudden I would have articulation in my fingers or in my toes, or so it was really interesting to me to be able to trace that healing through the body and watch it in real
Mm-hmm.
time. So when I had clients, I started to see these spots just start lighting up on their body. And what I heard was, put your hand here. Now put your hand there. And I said, okay. Like, I don't know what this is, but okay. Put my hand up on a shoulder, put the other hand on the, like the left lat. And I could, and I would hear, ease up, gentler, gentler. So I would ease up, and then I would feel all of the fascia and all the soft tissue start moving in this rhythm through the body. And I could feel the heartbeat, and I could feel the blood flow, and I could move. Um, from if I said in my head, okay, because I started playing with it, okay, so I
Mm-hmm.
have my two hands here. Can we get the soft tissue between my left hand and my right hand to connect? Because you could feel the disconnect. And then all of a sudden, the soft tissue would just start opening up, and the client would go, oh my God, right? And they would just start moving, and it was glorious. So after every client, I just said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then before I knew it, I was introduced to a Reiki Master Teacher who needed space in a studio to work with clients. So I said, well, come on in. I have an extra space. And she said, tell me what it is that you do, right? I've never heard of this gyrotonic method. So I said, well, the best way to understand it is to experience it. May I work on you? And she said, absolutely. So put her through a session, and she stops and she says, do you know what you're doing? And I said, well, yes, this is a gyrotonic method. She goes, no, 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 no. Do you know what else you're doing? And I said, well, no, I just see red spots and I'm told, put my hand here, put my hand there. And then things just open up. And she says, okay, so that's Reiki.
My goodness.
And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, well, it's a healing modality that literally is just the same. So in learning, right? Because you have to
Mm-hmm.
study, you have to take tests, you have to get, go through blessings and rituals. And so I didn't know anything about it. I had experienced it years prior, but I didn't quite understand what it was. And she said to me, it's prayer. It's prayer. Reiki is the exact same thing as prayer. And I said, so is it religious? And she said, no, not in any way. It complements. And I said, wait, what? And she said, it complements. It's like cherry on a sundae. It's just blessing. And I said, oh. And she said, it's a blessing that moves through the Reiki expert and is bestowed on whoever asked for it. And I said, okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. So, needless to say, she
Mm-hmm.
started working with me and became my master teacher and trained me. And I just started using Reiki in my practice. And then, of course, everything leveled up at that point, too. Once you add a blessing, I mean,
Right.
hello.
Right. That's incredible. And the
Yeah.
way that all of these things that may sound to people who haven't heard of them like a little further
Hmm.
out, there
Absolutely.
is science behind sound therapy. There is science
Oh,
behind
yeah.
so much of this, and so much of it has been looked at and studied and written about in a scientific
Yes.
way. And that's also beautiful. Not that we should need proof of what we have faith in, but sometimes God graces us
It
with that.
helps.
Yeah, yeah, it helps. It helps. And so,
And it's there for a reason, right?
yes, and I feel
It's
like,
there for a reason.
yes, and it's evidence of divine
Yes.
creation. I feel like it is,
Yes.
and that we're meant to have all parts and not just a few.
Yes.
Um,
Well, I mean, it's just like I could have very easily dismissed a chiropractor,
oh,
right?
sure.
Voodoo medicine. I could have very easily dismissed that.
Yeah.
But again, like my brother-in-law said, when an angel shows up and tells you, right, who are
Yes.
you to say no? And I
Exactly.
always, like when I find myself in a moment of question, I always go, oh, remember that story where someone is on the roof of their house and they ask for someone to save them, right?
Yes.
And the weatherman told you the storm was coming, and now your neighbor just came by in a boat and you said, no, God was going to save me. And then a helicopter, nope, God is going to save me. And then like you're taken away in the storm.
Right.
I was like, am I going to be that person?
I know. And you say, God, why didn't you save me? And he's like, I sent you everything you
I
needed.
sent you so much.
Yes.
What
That's
more do you need?
that's so true. Gosh, I love your journey so much, and I love to see you smiling here today in
Oh,
peace
heck
and
yeah.
purpose. That's amazing.
I am more than 100% now. More.
More than
And that
100%.
is more than 100%. I am in joy. I am in constant joy
Mm,
and um, have a knowingness, steadfast. I just, there, you can call it faith,
mhm.
but it's stronger. It's a knowing.
There are so many people looking for peace and joy out there and wanting to end up where you're at now.
Yeah.
And I really want that to be a focus in this season of the podcast, that people thinking about doing what they need and seeking what they need to have that, to find that.
I am right there with you. It's why the podcast Find Your Flow exists. Um, when I first started the studio, it was called Negare,
Mm-hmm.
which is Japanese for the flow of water. And the tagline has always been Find Your Flow, because for 15 years I've been working with people to literally meet them where they are. Where are you? Right? And
Mm-hmm.
I hold you in love, in grace, in hope, to be able to help you get to where you want to be. And So once again, a couple months ago, I was talking with my husband and I said, what is it that I can do? I feel called. I feel called to do something and I don't know what it is. And he said, well, remember Negare Life? Remember when you mapped all of that out? And I said, yeah, I still have the spreadsheet. He said, it's time. And I said, oh, well, that's humbling, isn't it? Humbling. And I said, okay. So I sat in meditation. Meditation is prayer. It's the exact same
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? I
Yes.
sat in silent meditation saying, tell me what to do. Tell me how. I know I am of service, not in servitude, not
Mm-hmm.
in service. I am of service, which means it moves through me. I literally am just a vessel. So tell me. And I heard start a podcast and I went, great. I have no idea how to do that. I know nothing. What should I, how?
Yeah, I get that.
And of course, like everything just starts falling into place. Go to Riverside, get an account. Go to Calendly, get an account. Like these are little bits and pieces that I picked up along the way of my journey, all coming together to create this experience, Find Your Flow. And I asked specifically, what shall I share? Share meditations. Great. Great. On what? I mean, I had been channeling meditations for 5 years. So I have like a huge database of meditations where, and I say, and it started because I would hear that same voice, that divine voice waking me up at night. Write this down. So I would go and write it down. I would be in the middle of talking to someone and that voice would interrupt saying, go type this. And I would say, excuse me, and go and type something up. And then it became a deliberate practice. So as I became a Reiki Master Teacher, I started sharing my version of Reiki. And but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take this art and create something loving out of it. So for me, it was just, I'm going to share the divine word with you. Like that's here. This is my gift to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it became, it just became a practice. So to hear share meditations again, I was like, oh, we're going, it's big time. Like this is big time, right? For you hear a lot in the spiritual world, there's a mass awakening. And you hear those words a lot, mass awakening.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To me, I hear like a mass return, returning to self, returning to source, returning to soul. And that reflection inward comes back out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That just gave me chills. A mass return.
A mass return to
Yeah.
self, and
Yes.
self is soul, self is divine, self is
Mm-hmm.
connected to all. It is of God, right?
Yes.
All of it
Yes.
connected,
Divinely created. Absolutely.
right? You are me, I am you. We're all one,
Mm-hmm.
all one. So it's this return back to that, like the oneness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay. So that's the essence of the meditation. So the essence of this meditative practice is to receive so that you're empowered to, what I call, show up to the buffet of healing and figure out what works for you. You're empowered to say, I like this but not that.
Mm-hmm.
I want this but not that. This works for me, but this does not. But it works for you, so have at it, right? Like all of
Yeah.
this acceptance and celebration of self. So if I celebrate myself, that means I celebrate you. Because if I recognize that what works for me may not work for you, but what works for you is just as glorious as what works for me. We're equal, right? And there's
Yes.
harmony in
Yes.
that. There's an ebb and a flow to all of it. And as long as that's respected and reflected, it that's peace. That right? That's peace.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's my calling. My calling is to help um, empower, inspire, empower, and educate so that we get to live in peace.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for coming on, Lisa. You have been a blessing to my day. And I just know everyone is intrigued by your story and encouraged by you. Your light just radiates. And
Oh, thank you.
I'm so glad you came on today. Everybody, check out Find Your Flow. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts. You will see Lisa on the Find Your Flow podcast. And there's good stuff there. I know you want more of her, so check that out. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.
Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light.